because you say what your position was, but you voted against Theresa May's deal 3 times. Now you're complaining that the Johnson approach is the hardest of hard Brexits. But that's because you're to blame. You voted against the May deal. You could have had it. You made a strategic misjudgment.
But come on, you know better than most commentators, because you do actually pay attention to some of this stuff, that deal that Theresa May put before Parliament wasn't a trade deal. She brought a withdrawal agreement 3 times that offered no clue or direction as to... No, hold on.
But trade is what we now discussed. This was a withdrawal agreement.
No, you asked me a question. You said you wanted some detail. I'm about to give you the detail. You know as well as I do that what Theresa May put before Parliament 3 times was a withdrawal agreement that would take us out of the EU with no clue about where we were going next and no role for Parliament in it. Were we going to be in a customs union? Were we going to negotiate access to the single market? There was absolutely no direction of travel. When I said I would vote for Theresa May's deal was when she finally did what I and others have been asking for months. She said she would bring a bill to Parliament that would enable Parliament to set the terms of that negotiation. I said I would vote for it. She resigned. The bill was pulled, and I voted for it the next time it came before Parliament, which was when Boris Johnson became Prime Minister.
So I'm not quite sure now. Is the Johnson deal better or worse than the May deal?
Well, now it's irrelevant what Labour thinks about the Johnson deal, because quite frankly, he has a majority and we don't have the means to decide.
Yeah, but in your view, since you voted against the May deal 3 times, then you said the May deal should be revived. I mean, many people thought you were all over the place on this.
Well, pay attention is all I'm asking people to do.
Well, I am paying attention. I mean, you actually flirted with voting for the May deal after having voted against it 3 times.
I didn't flirt with voting for the May deal. I told...
Reviving the May deal, you told Sky News on October the 6th, was the only way to avoid no-deal Brexit, having opposed it 3 times.
There wasn't a single thing about my position that changed during that time. In January, Theresa May finally agreed to negotiate with Labour. I told her at the time that if she brought a bill before Parliament that gave a role for Parliament in the next stages of the negotiations, I would vote for it. I was consistent in that all the way through. And had she brought that bill, I told her and I told my constituents that I would vote for it. And when Boris Johnson finally did, I voted for it. Not because I believed it was perfect, not in any sense, but because it gave us a chance to get the things that we needed to get into that bill: a customs union, access to a single market and protection.
Well, I want to come on to that, because you want to build a so-called red bridge between pro-Remain Labour areas and Labour's pro-Leave heartlands, many of which are now Tory. What possible approach to the EU could unite Hampstead and Hull?
I think opposition to a hard Brexit and a better vision of where Britain sits in the world. One of the things that I set out today was the lack of thinking that we've done on the left about what a commitment to internationalism now means. Let me give you an example of this.
But I'm talking about the EU and how you would approach and unite Hampstead and Hull. I want to concentrate on what your attitude to the EU could be that would unite these 2 areas.
Could I just gently say to you that if you don't want me to talk in generalities, you are going to have to give me time to answer the question. And that will take more than 1 sentence, because reuniting Hampstead and Hull that have been moving apart for 40 years
Exactly, and I'm asking you what would bring them together.
And what would bring them together is for somebody in British politics to genuinely seek the common ground that unites those 2 places. Let me give you an example. On climate change, often we find people in one part of Labour's coalition calling for a green revolution, and in another part of Labour's coalition who are seeing power stations close, who are fearing that their jobs are going to be lost, feeling that this is something that is somehow threatening. But actually, if you think about what a green revolution means, it means investment in clean energy jobs that should be in the UK, it means investment in home insulation that will cut energy bills, and it means the better buses that, frankly, I've been talking about for decades.
That may unite them in terms of green policy. I don't know, but it might. I'm asking you about what unites them in their attitude to Europe. Today in your speech, you also said you wanted free movement to continue, free movement of people, which would suggest that your idea of listening is to tell the people of Hull that they were wrong and they should suck up the immigration policy of Hampstead.
I think that's based on your idea of what the people of Hull are like, and I don't recognise that reality.
Well, they voted against free movement.
I live in Wigan, have lived there for a decade. These are my friends, my neighbours, my family and my constituents, not just voters.
And they voted against free movement.
And let me tell you why. Because for too long, too many people have felt, not just in Britain, but across the EU, that free movement favours the skilled and the mobile at the expense of governments investing in the skills of young people in towns like mine. And if free movement were to be... Nobody in Wigan resents the fact that we have people coming from across the EU to take care of people in our local hospital and our care homes. But they do resent the fact that those skilled jobs aren't available to them as well. And at a time when we were having the referendum, there was a young person who said to me, I don't mind the fact that you're telling me that there are lots of nurses in the hospital, but you've just cut the nursing bursary and I don't have a chance. Free movement married with real investment in skills for young people.
And you think that will build the red bridge? You're going to tell the people who voted for Brexit in 2016, who voted in this Conservative government in December, that you'll continue with free movement, but you're going to improve skills policy. That's what you're going to say?
Well, yes, I do believe that would have allayed... I do believe that would have allayed concerns, but with respect, Andrew, you're fighting battles that have now gone. The task facing the Labour Party is far bigger than this now. We're leaving the EU. Boris Johnson has a majority. When I say that Labour must raise our game, one of the slogans that you don't seem to like, the reason that I say that is because the task now is to think about where are these alliances internationally, within and outside the EU, that we're going to have to build as a nation in order to keep us safe and to give our young people a chance.
Right. It's not raising your game is not something I like or dislike. That's not my job. What I'm trying to do is to find out what these phrases that you deploy mean.
Well, you could let me answer the question.
Let's come down into some detail here. What policies would you drop from the 29 Labour manifesto?
I think this is a question of rediscovering, as Nye Bevan said, the language of priorities. Most of the policies in that manifesto I thought were reasonably popular, but taken together, I think we'd vastly underestimated the need that people feel, particularly in constituencies like mine, for security. So, for example, there was a pledge on free broadband. It was a good policy. It wasn't very well explained, but it was a very good policy. But I think it was very difficult for us to go out and articulate to people that we were going to give them free broadband when the buses that they've been asking for 40 years just simply weren't there. I think there was a need to demonstrate where we were going to get the money from for the Pledge to the Waspy Women, a campaign that I very much support, and a group of women who I've been privileged to work with for a long time.
So you agreed with the pledge?
Well, but when we couldn't demonstrate where the money was coming from, that frightened people.